This morning at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul in downtown Boston, faith leaders took a stand against new orders on immigrants and refugees from President Trump. The interfaith group announced the formation of a solidarity network and called for state leaders to pass a Safe Communities bill. This would limit cooperation with requests for detention and withhold support from a possible Muslim registry. We'd like to welcome one of the leaders taking part this morning, Rabbi Victor Hillel Reinstein from Nehar Shalom Community Synagogue in Jamaica Plain. Thank you very much for being with us, Rabbi.
Thank you.
First of all, introduce your congregation a bit. This is a house synagogue in Jamaica Plain.
Yes, it's very homey. It's we've based ourselves on a very old model that we transplanted. It's a model, a type of synagogue called a shtibel that comes out of the Hasidic tradition. And it's really a prayer room that would be in the rabbi's home. And that's what we've done. We have a large old Victorian house, and my wife and I live there, and the synagogue meets there. And so there's lots of people coming and going, and we are an egalitarian, involved with the world community, but drawing on the traditional roots of a very intimate community.
This is like a typical Jamaica Plain gathering here, you know, yes. Going to J.P. Licks to study scripture too, right?
Yes. Yes, it's very much in the spirit of Jamaica Plain as well, and we're very much a neighborhood synagogue. We're the Nehar Shalom Community Synagogue, and we're very involved in the community locally, and along with so many in Jamaica Plain in the world community. And so yes, we meet every Thursday morning. Many people, not all members of the synagogue, but we meet to study the Torah at J.P. Licks.
Well, another part of life in Jamaica Plain is immigrants, and some of them, I'm sure, are concerned about their status and their future. What engaged your congregation in that?
We are a very socially conscious community, very progressive, and with deep concern about the world and its people. And so we are very naturally involved in the needs of people, both locally, our neighbors, and our neighbors beyond Jamaica Plain. And that really is an imperative that we draw from Jewish tradition and from Torah.
This is Neighborhood Network News. We're talking with Rabbi Victor Hillel Reinstein. Rabbi, you also recently went to Germany with some other rabbis. This is about confronting the history in Germany, but also what's happening right now with refugees from the Middle East.
Yes. I was part of a group of 12 Boston area rabbis coordinated through the German Consul General to New England in Boston. And we went to Germany as part of a program that we called A Journey of Remembrance and Hope. And some of us, such as myself, by intention, had never been to Germany, carrying the weight of the Holocaust very deeply. And this was an opportunity facilitated by a deeply caring and understanding human being, the Consul General himself, and to come and to wrestle together toward reconciliation. And as part of that tour, going deep into the pain, such as through a visit to Dachau, and also reaching toward hope. As part of that reaching, we visited a refugee center near Berlin. And I would note here, which was extremely inspiring for us to realize, that Germany accepted more than 1 million refugees in 2015. And we met with refugees, many of whom were recent arrivals from Syria. And I was particularly moved just to tears, playing with children, several of whom had come just recently from Aleppo. These children gave us drawings that they had made, and they are just so beautiful, so simple, each one with the word welcome on it. And that, I think, becomes the great teaching for us to bring here, the simple words of welcome that we should learn from these children and take them to heart as a nation.
What did you think of the painting or drawing with the hands spread out?
Oh, I just love that. That is, those are handprints that form the wings of a butterfly. And it says that we are the butterfly. To me, this beautiful innocence of a child, of a butterfly formed of handprints. And I hope that we can raise our hands to be wings for others, to help them to rise above the pain and strife where they are.
Well, you know, we all come from immigrant ancestors who sometimes left under duress. Does that inform your feelings about what's happening right now with immigration and refugees?
Very much, as part of it. Part of what informs my own response is that I take the Torah seriously, that all people were created in the image of God. There's no asterisk with that. We are told in the Torah that as Jews, you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You know the soul of a stranger. And then that comes to be our own experience from that time as a people who were often unwanted and often had to travel from country to country seeking safety. And that story informs our own response for so many of us today. My own family, my grandparents were from the Ukraine, from a town in which my family grew up and until they left. And I grew up hearing stories of pogroms in their town. And those have stayed with me. There were those who never left, from whom the letters stopped coming after the Holocaust.
Those pogroms were partly driven not just by anti-Semitism, but that sort of anti-liberal, nationalistic backlash. Do you sense some of that coming around today in America?
Well, I wouldn't minimize the anti-Semitic nature of the pogroms.
I'm sure, yeah, it was definitely.
But I think that there is underlying that a hatred for the other and an inability to embrace the other as part of who we are, whoever the we is, to the point that there ultimately is no other. We are all human beings, and I think it's one of the great dangers of strong nationalism, that we draw boundaries not only around the doors to the country, but around our hearts, and we can't let the other in and see that we're all one. And I think it's terrifying right now to see that dynamic at work through the new administration in this country.
Now, this morning, there's this great gathering of faith leaders, all these different denominations, and I guess this is not a bunch of experts on security, but these are people taking a strong stand, saying that we don't want this government to do what the president has asked it to do. So it's almost like this is really almost like all about principle here. Mm-hmm. Why take this position so strongly?
Well, I think moral principle is an extremely important seedbed for the way that we behave in the world. And I think it's also been shown very clearly by people who are expert that behaving so brazenly and with such disdain for other human beings is not in the interest of security. And so I would see no separation between moral principle and our own well-being. If we simply look at the response throughout the world, we can see that affirmed. And when I think of these children from Aleppo whom I met in Germany, these are the people that we're keeping out in the name of some greater security.
You recently had a kind of a prayer or statement on the current situation, and I was looking that over and thinking that you got to get people to where they can at least talk to each other and think straight.
Yes.
Is that a pertinent part of this getting?
I think that this is an extremely important and creative tension that we need to work with. I think that in the face of wrong, as we're seeing now, we need to speak up unequivocally. And we have certainly learned that from world history and our own Jewish history of what happens when people don't speak up in the face of great wrong. At the same time, without minimizing our own speaking up and our own activism, we need to be open-hearted to all and be very wary that we not allow seeds of hate and disdain to be planted in our own hearts. We need to be ready to embrace all Americans and people of the world, regardless of where they are, but we need to hold in deep, deep, holy tension that readiness to embrace, but also not to minimize our own efforts to bring change for the sake of goodness.
We should mention that if anybody would like to find out more about your congregation, you have the website.
Yes, we are delighted to welcome people, both Jews and non-Jews. All are welcome to our services and programs. And we do have a website. You can simply look up Nehar Shalom, Nehar Shalom, or Synagogue, Jamaica Plain. Nehar Shalom means river of peace, and our vision is to flow from our own place, our own well springs out into the world, helping with all people to bring peace.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rabbi Victor Hillel Reinstein. We'll have more news in just a moment.